Mr. Sharp, can you hear me? Mr. Holstein Rothlo, can you hear me? You need to unmute. You press the blue button on your screen.
Okay, I can hear you.
It's Holstein Rothlo, is that correct?
Yeah, von Holstein Rothlau.
Okay, von Holstein Rothlo, thank you. Mr. Sharp, you need to unmute. It's a blue button on your screen.
Got it?
Okay. Each of you raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and do we have anybody, any other witnesses, or just the two of you?
No witnesses for me, sir.
Okay.
No witnesses for me.
Okay. Sharp, you brought the suit. When you tell me what this is about?
Sure, yes. About 4 years ago, it was April of 2017. I verbally contracted with Eric to have my vehicle repainted and restored at E&J Customotive. Shortly after the vehicle got there, he had problems, I believe, with hiring and retaining help at his shop to get the job done. And the job reached a point about 2 years ago where no work was able to be done on it reliably. Shortly after that time, I let Mr. Rathlow know that I needed to pick up the vehicle. I had paid $8,500 total in expenses, all within about the first year. And upon me picking up the vehicle, I spoke with Eric a few times, and we tried to come to an arrangement of what was due. I did receive a list from him of parts and additional labor that was done on the vehicle, and proposed a settlement or adjusted price of $6,600, I believe. I don't have the document in front of me, in money that might be owed me. And at that point, I didn't receive any additional communication from Eric, so brought this to court.
Okay, what are you suing for?
I'm sorry, sir?
What are you suing for?
I'm suing to recover the amount listed in the complaint for the work I have not received. And I can find that amount, $62,1134.
How did you arrive at that figure?
Again, I had prepaid Mr. von Holstein Rothlau $8,500. Upon getting the car back from him, discussed how much work was done on the car, how much work wasn't done on the car, how many parts he had bought, which I did receive, shipping on those parts, deducted those amounts from the amount that I had prepaid, and came to this figure of $62,1134.
So the work expended and the parts expended totaled
Now, let's see.
$2,288.60.
Yes, sir. 2288.66 is what I've got.
Okay. Okay, Mr. von Holstein Rothlu, do
Yes.
you have any questions of Mr. Sharp?
Well, I will admit that it was taking longer than
First of all, do you have any questions of Mr. Sharp?
it was taking longer than we had anticipated to do the
Do you
work.
have any questions of Mr. Sharp?
Oh, no, I do not.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was taking longer than we had anticipated to do the work. And like you said, I was having also a little trouble finding work that was, or workers that were God, the word slips my mind right now. dependable. And also during the meanwhile, last year I relocated my shop, which took several weeks, and it took me even longer than that to reset up my paint booth and get stuff set up so I could start doing more work on his car. The thing is, we had been in contact regularly pretty much. He called me one morning and I was talking about, I almost had my booth set up and ready to go. And he said that he just wanted to pick up the car. And at that point, I didn't see any use in squabbling about it. Came down from Las Cruces with his trailer. We loaded the car on his trailer, which is also on a dolly that is made for moving a car without its suspension on it, a dolly that belongs to me. And he picked it up and we sorted out all the parts, made sure everything that he had with the car went with the car. And then a few months later, well, he took the car at that time. A few months later, or a few weeks, he emailed me saying that there was no value in the work that had been done to the car up to that point. And he was going to sue me for what he considered was a balance due. And I vehemently disagree with that there's no value in the work that was done to the vehicle. Up to that point, it was almost ready to have paint put on the main body. There were some smaller parts that still needed to be prepped for paint and painted and then reassembled. And I did offer at that time when he picked the car up, I offered at that time to go up on a weekend and at his house and help him do some assembly work on it. I've known Mr. Sharp for over 20 years. And so I just disagree that there is no value in all the work that was put into the car up to the point that he picked it up.
Do you acknowledge he paid you $8,500?
Correct. Yes.
Well, what do you think the value of what you did perform is?
Well, I would like to request that this go to mitigation.
Mitigation is passed. I mean, mitigation is where you each try to mitigate your damages. Are you talking about arbitration? Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps. I was told to ask for mitigation.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, I would have been happy to work something out and come somewhere in between.
okay. So what do you contend is the fair value of the work that you did do?
I would say there was over $4,000 worth of body work done to the car in labor and parts, material.
So that you say,
Time and material and a lot of the body work. The invoice I have on that I gave him shows a separate labor for rust repair and welding and that kind of work, which is not included in the original, just paint and prep and paint. But there was a lot of work done to that body just to get it ready for paint. And the doors were already primer.
wait. Let me try to understand what you just said.
Beg your pardon.
Let me try to understand what you just said. You said there's a lot of work that wasn't called for in the estimate. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying when I estimate to paint a car, that includes all the body work and the paint, but it does not include rust repair or any major damage repair. That car did not really have any major damage, but it did have some rust. That was built separately from the original estimate on what it would take to paint and prep the car.
How much was the work?
The majority, excuse me.
How much, you said the work on the rust was billed separately. How much was that billed at?
$1,885.
Did you discuss that with Mr. Sharp?
Yes, he has a copy of this invoice.
Mr. Sharp, was there additional work for rust repair, $1,885?
There was, Your Honor. The original estimate for the vehicle's repair on the estimate that Eric's referencing was $7,000. And yes, there is an additional charge of $1,885 for the rust repair and other body repair, which you add those together, you've got $8,885. Again, of which I'd prepaid or deposited $8,500 in total.
Okay.
That does not include the list of parts that were purchased also.
It's true.
So there's parts that were purchased, additional amount?
Yes, sir. Again, I don't know if you have reference to the documents, but on the invoice we're looking at, there's about, 7 line items and parts there.
Where would I have these documents? Did you all,
I sent them, I'm sorry, sir.
you emailed them in?
Yes, sir. I emailed them on Monday and then again on Friday. Since I hadn't seen receipt, I wanted to make sure they got there.
Okay, well,
It went to the JP1 Gmail account, I believe.
okay, let me see if I can find them. 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Is this the email you're talking about?
It's not on my, there it comes. Yes, sir. That is the email where I submitted my evidentiary documents.
Okay, what is this looking at?
So quickly, it's a sort of a chronological presentation of documents that support the case. However, if you'll scroll down to, I think it's page 5, there's the document we're referencing.
You tell me when to stop.
Yes, sir, I will. Okay, this is the invoice that we're speaking of, sir. This is the one that Eric and I had worked on after I'd picked up the car. That was kind of summarizing where we were with our accounts. Again, it shows the original estimate was 7,000. The additional rust repair not covered is valued at 1,885. Again, that totals 8885. He itemizes down in the middle of the invoice the payments I had made prior to that, which total 8,500. And the parts that Eric is talking about are those 7 line items in the middle there, which I can run a calculator, but real fast, it looks to be about less than $300 probably.
Okay, but it totals 9,317.15.
That's with his sales tax. Yes.
Okay, so the total job was going to be,
Yes, that's right.
total job was going to be 9,317.15. You 8,500, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then Mr. Von Holstein Rathler, you said that the value of the work you've done is $4,000 just by your own emissions. That would be 5,317.15. It's owed back, correct?
I disagree, sir. That was in
Wait,
labor.
wait,
but
just
also-
a minute, just a minute. I asked you, what is the value of the work you did? You said $4,000, correct?
That is in addition to the 1885.
In addition to the 1885. Why?
Yes.
I asked you, what is the value of the work you did?
Well, I'm sorry. I should have speculated that or specified that it was in addition to the 1885. I'm talking about the labor and material that went into the car separate from the rust repair.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now it's $5,815 of values. You say you performed the car, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Sharp, can you kind of run through with these numbers? If we start at 9,317.15, how you got to 6,211.34?
Yes, sir. Again, I'm looking at it from the basis of having paid the $8,500 in deposits in cash. And when I subtract from that amount, the 1,885 for the rust repair not covered, and I subtract the amount for the auto parts, and finally I subtract the $58 from the shipping, that's where I wind up at the 6211.34 figure.
Okay. So, and you're talking about these additional, you see my cursor, these figures,
Yes, sir. Those figures from the 150 down to the 5836, I have subtracted those from my
So
deposit.
the 1885 and those figures, and that's how you get the 6,000
Yes, sir.
to
Yeah,
11.
my figures do not include his sales tax figure. I was going from the net amount.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Von Holstein Rathler, in addition to the 1885 rust repair work, what was done to the vehicle?
Well, preparation work, disassembly work,
Is prep, That doesn't-
yeah, preparation is sanding the body down,
that doesn't
prepping
include
it,
rust.
using
That's not
body
something-
fill. Beg your pardon?
The sanding is not included in the rust?
No,
Okay.
the rust is cutting out the rust and welding in repair patches
Oh, okay. Okay, so
and,
how about
and
we look at the
such.
photos?
But if you look through the pictures that he posted on there, you can tell that it went from almost when he picked it up on the trailer, it's in primer. A lot of work went into it, getting into primer. It was an assembled car when it came to my shop. So we put a lot of time into disassembly, prepping all the parts, fixing any minor dents that it had. There was a lot of waves in the body, which I don't know if you're familiar with body work or not, but you want, especially when the customer wants the car black, the panels have to be very, very straight. Otherwise it'll look bad.
Your
But a
Honor,
lot
may I
of work
talk?
went into just getting it up to the state it was when he picked it up.
Okay,
Your Honor, may I talk to you about these photos for a moment?
sure.
Okay, very good. So what I've put together as a chronology is Eric saying that picture, if you'll scroll back down, that is the car on the trailer as I delivered it to Eric in 2017. And as you can see, I did some pre-work for moving some trim items, the engine, the transmission, but the body is assembled and the suspension is intact, both for ease of delivery and also because Eric needed all those parts as the restoration work went on. If you'll continue down, that's a record of the payments. Here's some of the work Eric and his painter had done. As he's saying, he had to sand down the entire body, as is normal in this sort of work, and did some preparation work, some disassembly to get to all the parts. Again, these are all standard practices when you're restoring and painting a car. These are some of the other detailed pictures. And when the car turns yellow there, that's when he's talking about where he put it in primer. And that's some of the work that was done toward the car. And I think if you'll continue on a little bit more. Okay, so this is a shot of the condition that I picked it up back in, I think it was April, or May or June, if I remember, but it's on there. However, you can see the car is completely disassembled. And what I received back is a car that was in pieces and boxes that I have to put back together, which was part of the work that was contracted under this. In addition, Eric and his team did paint. As you can see, the engine compartment is black, and so is the trunk. And Eric acknowledged that it's not finished correctly. It's a shinier finish than it should be, and thus that needs to be redone and repainted. And at the bottom of the document, you'll see it's at a different body shop now up here in Las Cruces, and I found some additional contamination under the paint that was applied to the engine compartment where it's had to be sanded back down. And that was around the suspension pockets and in the corners of the engine bay. So we're having to redo all that work under the hood area. And on top of that, again, my biggest problem is that what I received is the literal basket case car where I've got to put all the parts back together. I got to find every nut and bolt. And that part of the service I'd contracted with Eric was, of course, to deliver me a car that was painted and rolling similar to how I delivered it. And then I'd bring it back up here to install the engine and interior. As you can see, I've got a lot of parts on the floor of my garage I've got to get through now.
Okay, but you're not giving any portion, any payment to any of this work here, are you?
No, sir, because the way it's set up now is the new body man is looking this over, and I'm sure Eric can attest, bodywork and paint chemistry is very specific. And so this body man is having to go through and check all of the work that was previously done as far as the condition of the primer coat and the work underneath it. To Eric's credit, so far, the primer coat has been found to be in good condition, and the bodywork underneath seems to be in good condition. However, we're currently at a state where we're trying to make sure that what paint we apply is going to work well on primer that was sprayed 3 years ago and has been stored in a dirty shop with handprints and oils on it. So there's a lot of concern about the surface we're working with. Obviously, it's better that one painter controls everything and matches up his primers to his paints and does it quickly before dirt and contaminants can get on the surfaces. And as you can see, Your Honor, in the picture you've got, there's a trunk lid laying there. And if you look, there's oily handprints on it. And all that has to be sanded or at least cleaned extremely well. And that's saying you're going to get the right paint on top that matches the brand. My number reflects the fact that I feel I'm having to go back and redo or at least concentrate on these items that I shouldn't be having to pay someone to do again now.
Mr. Von Holstein Rathler, would you like to respond?
I do agree that the body panels probably would have needed a little scuffing and maybe another hand of primer put on top to seal it better, because the primer was old and you need, the pores need to be open so that the paint that goes on top will adhere well. But that's only a few hours worth of work. And like I say, the thing is, I had trouble finding dependable body guys, and then I relocated my shop. That move took several weeks, and it took several more weeks to get set up and get ready to go again. And that was during the time when Rob decided to pick the car up before I could get back on it.
And if I can interject, sir, Eric, did you have a painter lined up again at that time?
I have one working for me now on another project.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think there's got to be some value in this, in disassembling it and painting it. I understand, Mr.
And I did, and excuse me, I did volunteer to spend some weekends up at Rob's house helping him reassemble it when he picked the car up.
Okay. Well, there's got to be some value in it. I don't know what that value is, but I'm gonna give it a value of $500. So that brings it down to So I'm going to award judgment amount of $5,711.34.
May I ask how you come to the $500 value?
Just took an educated guess from, or I guess from what you all have been telling me, from the evidence. You want to tell me? You want to tell me something that I can base it on? Tell me.
There's many hours of labor involved in that. And I had to pay my body guy for all the hours that he spent on it. And
I understand that, but you've also conceded that they're going to have to go back and have to do a lot of that work again, correct?
Yeah, correct. But it's not like starting from scratch and doing it over again.
Okay, well, so
it's basically, like I said, the trunk lid that can be cleaned up with some solvents and then prepped and another hand of primer. The whole car is probably going to need at least one more coat of primer on it before paint goes on it, just to make sure that the paint will stick. But that's not time consuming. That's the car was basically ready to paint. The majority of work in any paint job is the preparation up to the point where you apply the paint.
Okay, so
most of that work
you need to give me some evidence what to base this on. So far, you haven't stated anything about hours, time, anything. You just said a lot of hours.
I had a folder when I moved my shop. I lost the spreadsheet of the time that my body man had spent on it, and I can't find it. So I would have to say he's probably got over 100 hours of body work in that.
Okay, so again, I have no evidence or nobody stated anything. The hours needed to redo it or what needs to be redone, and so I'm forced to just base it on my guess, unless you want to offer something.
I think I did offer something. I told you there's probably over 100 hours of body work in the car. and that's billed at
And I-
$70 an
I
hour.
don't think anybody doubts that. But what is determinative is how many hours does it take to redo that, some of that stuff?
Well, it wouldn't take nearly as long to get it ready to paint than what's already been put into it.
Okay, I don't know what near,
I imagine 20 hours maybe to block sand the body down and put another coat of primer on it to prep it and get it ready for paint. If that's probably a high estimate. And I will admit that it took longer than we had anticipated to do the work, but there was never really a signed contract and agreement.
doesn't make any difference. You have to have something signed to do what you say you're gonna do?
No,
Okay, I'll give another credit of $500. My judgment's for $5,211.34. We have each of your y'all's emails. Mr. Von Holstein Rathler, do we have your email?
I believe you do, but I can give it to you. Do I just do this verbally?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. EJKUSTOMOTIVE. So it says EJ Customotive at AOL.com.
That's EJKUSTOMOTIVE@AOL.com.
Correct.
Okay. We will email each of you a copy of the judgment. Anything else?
I guess I'm okay with the judgment, Your Honor. I'd like to push back at least verbally a little bit on the contention that it would take 20 hours. I've had it at the new body shop now for over a month and he's still standing and working on it. But I have no documentation, bills from him showing the hours, so I can't counter his professional knowledge since he works with cars. But I do know that it's taking longer than that at the shop it's at now. However, if we could resolve it maybe 250 higher, I'd feel better about that settlement. But
This isn't a settlement. This is my judgment.
I'm sorry, sir, your judgment. And of
Okay.
course, that's up to you and your discretion, but that's the point I'd like to make.
Okay, well, thank you all. You'll each get a copy of the judgment.
Okay,
Thank you. I'm going to end the hearing, okay?
thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Bye-bye.